Good evening. Welcome to this evening's session. Is that Eleanor back? Welcome back, Eleanor.
Thank
Missed
you.
you. I hope your trip to India was eventful.
Um, uh, Still swallowing.
Yeah.
Let's see what's settles in in a few weeks.
Yeah, India has that kind of impact on people.
Exactly.
But welcome back. We're happy to see you again. Happy to
I
have
miss
your
you
input.
too. Every Wednesday we'll say, "Oh, I wish I could connect," but no.
Yeah, well, we were thinking about you every Wednesday. So, so, so welcome back. We're beginning the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So we're moving along. I vowed earlier this year to do the whole Bhagavad Gita verse by verse, and some of you have been with me the whole stretch, but those of you who joined us later, like Karen, um, you can always refer to the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, Larry Puglisi, and all the back classes are there, so you can catch up at your own. Hey, you can catch up at your own speed, and we'll continue through the 17th and the 18th chapters. So let's begin this evening with the um, mantras of gratitude and respect to our teacher or teachers, those who are illuminating our path with the torchlight of knowledge. Om Gyan Timulan Lasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshuru Militam Jai Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Dadati Swapadam Tikam Namao Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nabhishesha Shunyavadi Vastatya Dishotarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Ramo Ramo Hare Hare.
Lakshmi,
Yes.
may I ask this Madan Mohandas mute himself?
Okay, Madan Mohan ji, please mute yourself. Okay. Mission accomplished. All right, so we're beginning, as I said, with the chapter 17, Divisions of Faith. In Sanskrit, each chapter in Sanskrit by the previous acharyas are giving a title. So Prabhupada, in his translation in English, entitled it Divisions of Faith. The Sanskrit given this particular chapter is Shraddha Vibhaga Yoga, religion by the threefold kinds of faith. And it contains 28 verses, so it's not a very long chapter. But as is the case in Bhagavad Gita, each chapter is a yoga. There are actually 18 different yogas that are spoken about. Krishna wants us to understand that this knowledge that he is giving us is yoga in the sense that it connects us to the Supreme, connects us to our real nature, our nature of being Jibera Swarup Oi Krishnera Nichadas. That means constitutionally we are spiritual by nature and in that constitutional natural position, we are connected to the Supreme. So this is talking about faith. Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga. So Krishna qualifies these three, the faith or the divisions of faith, thoughts, deeds, and even eating habits corresponding to the three modes of material nature, the gunas. Now, we've addressed in part, I believe, in the 14th chapter, and a smattering of discussion about the gunas previous to that. So, in 15th chapter, there was discussion about the banyan tree. And the banyan tree is a metaphor that's used by Krishna to give us an understanding of the material nature. And the way he uses that is the banyan tree on the bank. In reality, it's on the bank of the lake, but if you look into the lake, it is upside down. So Krishna uses that metaphor to give us insight or give us perspective as to how the material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. So all throughout 15th, 16th chapter, there's reference to that also. It is the banyan tree and the branches are the three modes of material nature, and everything that consists of the material world has its perspective in reality, but in the material reflection, it is influenced by the gunas, the three modes of material nature, sattva gun, raja gun, and tamagun, or goodness, passion, and ignorance. So just as a sheet has thread in every part of it, from one corner to the next corner, every part, there is thread in a sheet, a bed sheet. Similarly, in every part of the material world, there is the influence or the presence of the modes of material nature, and it influences all living entities, everything that is within the material construct. And therefore, to understand the modes of material nature will give us some insight in how to understand its workings, the modes of material nature, the gunas, and also its workings on us, on the psychophysical influence that it has on the living entity when the living entity is within this material world. If the living entity is within this material world, and because the living entity, the soul, is called Tatashta Shakti, there is Nitya Siddha and Nitya Bodha. The word Nitya in Sanskrit means eternal, and Siddha means liberated. So there are souls that are eternally liberated that do not come in contact with the material energy, and therefore they are transcendental to the influence of the modes of material nature, sattva gun, rajagun, tamagun, or goodness, passion, and ignorance. And they are only influence or under the influence of Shuddha Sattva. And Shuddha, the word Shuddha means pure, pure goodness. So that means that the Nitya Siddha, the living entities that are eternally liberated, are never under the influence of passion and ignorance. Even in the material world, Sattva Gun, or the guna, the mode of material nature, is shares influence and dominance over the psyche of the living entity. In other words, they interchange, and that effect means that sometimes we're influenced by the dark side, and sometimes we're influenced by the bright side. And the whole purpose of yoga is to bring us to a sattvic state of mind. And then eventually, through purification, we get rid of we're no longer bound by Rajagun and Tamagun. Rajagun means action. Rajagun means it's the cause. Action in Rajagun is the cause of our distress. Rajagun means that distress will bring subsequent suffering. Tamagun means sleep, laziness, indolence, cannot see things as they are, cannot see things with a clear perspective at all, totally under delusion, the delusionary effects of the material energy. So that, as long as we're conditioned by the gunas, even we may have some sattva gun or goodness influence, which gives us some clarity of perspective, a greater insight into the nature of things and our nature. It gives us a proclivity towards knowledge, the concept of pursuing knowledge. It brings us a greater degree of happiness. So all of these things are there as the result of those influences. But when the living entity is still under the influence of the material energy in the form of the gunas, then what happens is we act in a particular way. Srila Prabhupada uses the analogy of colors. If you're an artist or have had some art training, you know then when you have three primary colors, right? And those three primary colors, when they're mixed in various degrees, will give us 9 colors. And then when those colors are mixed in various degrees, it will give us 81 and plus 3, 8,400,000 species of life. That's the description of why there are 8,400,000 species of life. And I find it very curious I read an article some time ago, maybe a year ago, which scientists, when they talk about the estimated number of species on the planet, they come up with 8 million. So there's not a much of a disagreement between what science is perceiving with empirically and what the Vedas are saying shastrically, 8,400,000 species. And this is because, as I said, the various permutations, the various combinations, all the subtle and gross combinations of the workings of the material energy via the gunas. And that is why we have what we have in terms of psychophysical natures of the various living entities because of that. So this is in this 17th chapter. It's entitled The Divisions of Faith because it's stated that even religion is as it is with its varying perspectives about God and our relationship to God, etc. It is that way because of the influence of the gunas on religious thought, the spiritual thought. That's why, when you really get down to it in terms of religions, if you do a kind of an objective analysis of religions, Abrahamic religions, the Hinduism, Buddhism, etc., all the major religions that appear before us, you'll see that bottom line, objectivity, because Prabhupada said once that real religion, his definition of religion was the process by which you can develop your love for God and your attachment to God. So Prabhupada did not say real religion was Hinduism or real religion is Christianity or real religion is this or that religion. What he said, his perspective, objectively speaking, is that it is a process that will help us to understand that the real purpose of life is to develop our loving relationship with God. So, this particular chapter, the 17th chapter, will tell us what religion will look like as it is being affected by the modes of material nature. It'll give us some description. So, what you'll hear, and actually throughout the Bhagavad Gita, the Sanskrit word that is used is called Shastra. And Shastra is English, from the English perspective, means scripture or sacred text. So the reason I bring that up is because you'll hear reference to Shastra or scripture either being present in our life, free from the influence of gunas, or influenced by sattva guna, or influenced by raja or tamaguna, and what they will all look like. In other words, I know in the yoga world, in the yoga community nowadays, contemporary yoga community, they like to avoid using the word God, and they'll use more vague terms like the universe or things like that, things which are very indefinite and not very distinct. But when we talk about the sacred text, the yogic sacred text, it's very clear that there is a God. In the Bhakti Yoga tradition in particular, very definite in that God has three features that can manifest to you according to desire. and according to the purification process, the process that you have incorporated within your life. For instance, prayer, chanting, swadhyaya, the study of sacred texts, sadhu sangha, keeping association with holy people, all of these things in terms of your process of development will help you to understand that there's not only a God or a supreme absolute truth, which is transcendent to the influence of the modes material nature always. It is that concept, that notion of the divine, supreme, absolute truth in bhakti, which appears, can manifest to the person who is following a process to cultivate an awareness of that supreme absolute truth, the ultimate truth. It will manifest according to our inner desire. So, in the Bhagavad Purana, for instance, it describes in the Bhagavad Purana that absolute truth, that ultimate truth, it can manifest in three different ways according to one's desire, how one is seeing their relationship, what perspective is being cultivated according to our desire and intent. Because yoga means, to link up with that truth. And the Bhagavad Purana says what that means specifically is that you link up with the truth in its Brahman feature, in its Paramatma feature, meaning the super soul within the heart, divinity within the heart, or the Bhagavan feature. And Bhagavan means that personality, that ultimate personal feature of Brahman that walks and talks and reciprocates. For instance, when someone prays to God, then you are praying to someone. You're not praying to the universe, but you're actually praying to a Bhagavan feature. And in the Bhakti tradition, it is very, very specific, who you offer your prayers to, your meditations to. It's not is something that's very nebulous, but very specific, especially if the heart is attracted to the Bhagavan feature. And Bhagavan means that that personality that possesses imperfection, bhagya, or opulences, like fame, strength, beauty, knowledge, renunciation, like that. Those opulences, everyone may possess that to some degree. You may possess some degree of beauty. You may possess some degree of strength. You may possess some degree of knowledge and wealth and fame, renunciation. You may, and we see to the degree that you possess those opulences, you may become known for being a very, very wealthy man. Like, for instance, in history, if you Google who is the wealthiest man that ever walked this planet, um, does anyone know who they'll say? Now, historically, in the Vedas, it'll say somebody different. But if you just Google, regular historians, do you know who they'll point to? Who was the wealthiest man that ever existed? His name was Mansa Musa, and he lived in Africa, I think in the area which is now called Mali, and he was the possessor of a vast amount of gold mines. the area where he lived, and the land that he possessed and continued to possess, was super rich in gold. And he had so much gold. I think the estimated amount of worth for this Mansa Musa was 750 billion. He was worth 750 billion. And in fact, he was Muslim. And when he made a pilgrimage to Mecca, he gave gold out all along the way and nearly destroyed the economy of Alexandria. When he went through Alexandria, by his generosity, he was giving out lots of gold to the people, and he really impacted the economy there. How, I don't know, but that's just a little historical tidbit when you talk about people who have opulences. And probably you could say, if you guess, you could probably come up with the top 5 richest people in the world because they're famous, right? They have fame because of their wealth. You know, Jeff Bezos worth $120 billion, and Elon Musk, and all the French, like I forget his name. He's usually up in the top 3. He's French. Um, his last name starts with A. But anyway, bhagya means opulences. So when someone is extraordinarily beautiful,
You meant
right?
Arnold?
Yes,
Hmm.
yes,
Yeah, don't
yeah. I
forget Bill
forget.
Gates.
Yes, Bill Gates also. Yeah. So these names are known. Why? Because they have opulence of wealth, and a woman or a man who has opulence of beauty, they're usually known, very well known. Strength, even renunciation. Mahatma Gandhi is well known. He was a lawyer, but then he took on the lifestyle of an ascetic. So he became well known for that. And Mother Teresa is another one who became very famous for that. So these opulence are there, but Bhagavan means that personality who possesses all those opulences in perfection. That is, I think it's Parasara Muni's definition of what is God when we talk about the personality of God. And if you look at other religions, you really don't find that kind of specifics. You may have a uh, someone with a gray beard sitting on a throne, simulating a like a king type figure, but really no definition, no description. So it's very hard to have relationship. So that's why the Bhakti Yoga tradition is so unique in that you can establish a very specific love relationship with this personal feature of Brahman. So this is when we talk about religion, that is developing or cultivating a understanding and relationship through study, through prayer, through a specific process. Like the Bhakti Yoga process is very specific in terms of what you do, how you do it, when you do it. Whole lifestyle is built in the Bhakti Yoga tradition. It's not just weekend warrior, go to the yoga studio, do some asanas, and then the rest of the time there is no contemplation, meditation on my relationship. So Bhakti Yoga is very specific that way. It could be Ram Bhakti, it could be Krishna Bhakti, Vishnu Bhakti, like that. And it's cultivating a specific relationship. And the Vedas are vast. The Vedas are very vast. And when you read the Vedas, they can become very bewildering. Why? Because they say at different times, they say different things. And do you know why? Why they may say different things at different times. Like sometimes Shiva is pointed to the supreme, and sometimes Vishnu is pointed as the supreme. Mostly those two. But do you know why? It's because humanity is influenced by the modes of material nature, and thus they'll have an ability to understand only according to the predominant mode that they're influenced by, and they're predisposed to because of the influence of the modes of material nature. And that's why religions appear to be different, in terms of their mode of worship, even their goal. Some religions, you can't know God. You can't understand, see God, or know God, or even utter the name of God because he's so far beyond us. But this is the 17th chapter. The 17th chapter is going to tell us that when the mode of goodness predominates, then this is what religion looks like according to that predominance of goodness. This is what religion looks like according to the predominance of the mode of passion or rajagun. And this is what religion looks like. This is the perspective that a person may have when there's a predominance of tamagun. The one thing I could say right off the bat is that if you see division, in other words, you just see distinction between people, lower and higher and lesser and greater and all that, that's usually an indication that there's predominance of Raja or Tamagun. And to the degree, in other words, when you actually become your religion oppresses others and their religious belief and worship, then you can understand that there is a predominance of Tamagun when they actually promulgate a philosophy or belief or perspective that this person is bad because they're of this faith. And a lot of the world's suffering and discord is because of that. That we can't accept Muslims because they're like this. Can't accept Christians because they're like that. We persecute Jews because they're like this. Hindus are polytheistic. They're all of these different perspectives that come up as a result of the influence of the modes of material nature and the religion that is attractive to you because it promotes a rajasic or tamasic or a sattvic perspective of God and our relationship with God and how to establish that relation, the very process. So we'll discuss all that. I'm giving you a little introduction here to the 17th chapter before we begin. And you'll often hear the reference of scripture. Scripture, the root word for scripture is script, Latin, and means to write or writing. And when you take it further, it means sacred writings. When it has a spiritual connotation, it usually refers to things that are sacred in terms of what they're writing about. So we're going to hear in the Gita reference to, if there's no adherence to the scripture, then that's an indication of tamagun, etc., whimsicality, creating your God, speculating, piecing it together, taking one piece here and placing it together, all those uh, varying perspectives that exist in the world under the banner of religion, Krishna will be addressing in this particular seventh chapter. And also faith. Faith is also according to the influence of the mode of material nature. The word faith comes again, its root is fides, which is Latin, and it means confidence or trust in a person, thing, or concept. So when one has faith in the Supreme, that means one thing which is really important is what is your faith based on? Because in the Bhakti tradition, blind faith is not accepted. When if you read in chapter 4, text 34 in Prabhupada's edition of the Gita, in his commentary, he says, blind faith is herein rejected. Krishna rejects blind faith. One must have knowledge in order to have your faith has to have a foundation. And if it doesn't have a foundation, if it's just religion that has no philosophy, is just sentiment. And philosophy that has no religion, no practical application is called dry speculation. So real when we read in the 17th chapter, Krishna will tell us that both must be there, both vairag and renunciation and vidya, knowledge, are companions to devotion. And that's why in Bhagavad Gita, we have at the center of the Gita discussion about love and devotion. And then prefacing the seventh chapter and after the 12th chapter, there's talk about knowledge, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, the various yoga systems that Krishna talks about there. There's knowledge. So knowledge in order to understand who you are devoting yourself to and what is the process of devotion. Because sentiment can be a thing where one will become lured into a mindset in relationship to God that is erroneous. They'll begin to accept erroneous principles. There was a whole movement over 500 years ago after Chaitanya left the world. There was a whole movement because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he emphasized the process of chanting. He also was a scholar, very, very learned scholar, and his six disciples, the six Goswamis, who were present during his time and after his time, they were also extremely learned in the Vedic literatures. But this chanting, which was emphasized, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his in his 8 verses called the Shikshashtakam, he only wrote 8 verses, but he emphasizes both the fact that chanting Vidya Vadhu Jivana, within the heart of the soul, knowledge comes to the surface. And that knowledge, even if it's not done through study, but through purification and realization, is consistent with two other facets or two other ways of getting knowledge. It's consistent with Shastra or scripture, what is said in Bhagavad Gita, what is said in Bhagavad Purana, in the Upanishads, etc. It is consistent with what is said there, and it is also consistent with the writings of the previous holy men, the previous holy people, like in the Sri Vaishnava tradition, you have the Alvars. And I believe in the Alvars there were 12, 10 of them were men, 2 were women. And you see that the Alvars wrote a lot. They wrote a lot of songs and a lot of realizations so that we could understand our nature as soul and the soul's nature in loving relationship with the Supreme. So the 6 Goswamis, during and after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, over 500 years ago, they wrote extensively. That was their order from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to them, to write extensively so that people would not become bewildered or tricked. Because even after that was done by the 6 Goswamis, there turned out to be, by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, a great spiritual master in the Bhakti lineage, by his count, there turned out to be 13 different movements that were misinterpreting and propagating false understanding of bhakti. And that was called Sahajaism, a false understanding of how to develop your love for the Supreme. So this is all very important. So we're going to study now 17th chapter, and we'll begin the divisions of faith with verse 1. See how much time. Okay. Arjuna inquired, "O Krishna, what is the situation of those who do not follow the principles of Scripture?" So here we have reference to Scripture, Ashastra, who do not follow Shastra, who do not follow the principles of Scripture, but worship according to their own imagination. Are they in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance? So Arjuna, he would like to know where in the banyan tree of the material world are situated those who faithfully follow something other than Shastra. And notice the word faithfully follow. So we see people who have faith in whatever they believe. Jim Jones and his group of people, they had faith that Jim Jones was a greatly realized soul to the extent that they followed his direction to commit suicide. So this is what's being indicated here. Do you see, if you say you're a Christian, do you see anywhere in the Bible where Jesus recommends suicide? As a means of obtaining Jesus? You don't see those things. And if you scrutinize, every religious leader, you from the perspective of the gunas, and from the perspective of adherence to whatever Scripture gives guidance or guidelines for the process to develop your love. Well, you look at St. Francis of Assisi from the Catholic tradition, and you see, how humble humility was a characteristic, devotion, prayer. I don't know how many of you have been to Assisi. Any of you gone to Assisi in Italy? Very, very beautiful place. It's a very beautiful place, and a place that reflects the devotion that St. Francis did. And he wanted to live in a Christ-like way. So you see, process, that's religion. And yoga is a process. It's a system or discipline which affords humanity the opportunity to realize or reach our highest potential. So there may be, certain subjective opinions about what the highest potential for a human being is, but according to Shastra, according to or Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Purana, or other sacred texts, you'll see in the Upanishads, it points what? To the perspective of Brahman. Atato Brahma Jignasa. It points that we are meditating on that aspect of ultimate reality. So yoga, even though I've heard in the yoga world, oh, I'm not here for religion. No, we're here for yoga. And any true process, whether it's called yoga or religion, is a process by which we can cultivate, reestablish our link, our connection to the divine, ultimate, absolute truth. So there's really no distinction. You can muddy the waters in terms of what you say, what is yoga, what is religion, etc. But according, if we're going from the Gita perspective here, according to Gita perspective, it is very clearly outlined. There is no muddied waters. Actually, it's the clear waters of knowledge which are emanating from the Supreme. So that was verse 1. Arjuna asking the question, and Arjuna asks a series of questions. That's the nature of the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Arjuna is asking questions for clarification, for purification, and for clarification. So Arjuna asked that question. What was the question? What is the situation of those who do not follow principles of scripture but worship according to their own imagination? Are they in goodness, in passion, or in ignorance? Krishna answers that question. In verse 2, Krishna says, according to the modes of nature acquired by the embodied soul, one's faith can be of three kinds. So faith in goodness, faith in passion, or faith in ignorance. Now hear about this. Text 3. Oh, son of Bharat, according to one's existence under the various modes of nature, one evolves a particular kind of faith. The living being is said to be of a particular faith according to the modes he has acquired. Text 4. Men in the mode of goodness. Okay, now Krishna starts getting specific. First, Krishna introduces that according to which mode of material nature is predominant in the mind, then you'll be attracted to a particular perspective on the process of religion and the goal of religion. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. Sambandha means knowledge, the knowledge of the process. Abhideya means the actual process that is to be implemented. And Prayojana means the goal. So in yoga, in all yoga, not just bhakti, but bhakti in particular, I'm most familiar with bhakti, there is sambandha, knowledge of the process, abhideya, the actual process, the implementation of the process in one's lifestyle, and prayojana means that process, that yoga system has a goal. And if the goal is influenced predominantly by, well, we'll read here, I won't say. Let's let Krishna speak. 4, men in the mode of goodness worship the demigods. Those in the mode of passion worship the demons. And those in the mode of ignorance worship ghosts and spirits. So faith is according to one's how you realize your desires. Shraddha, or faith, originally comes out of the mode of goodness. Its origin is from the Shuddha Sattvic platform, faith. That means from the Shuddha Sattvic platform, it means having complete trust and confidence in the Supreme. Just like when you look at the life and activities of the gopis, what do you see? Just absolute faith in Krishna as my all in all of my all in all of existence. So here, Krishna is saying that if you have a mode of goodness, you may be attracted to the demigods. Because why? Why isn't one ekeha kurunandana vyavisatyatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana? Why isn't one fixed, focused? The alambana is a particular aspect of divinity because there's still a tinge of rajas. There's still the presence of rajas and tama. Even one may have some predominance of sattvagun. And in worshiping of the demigods, like if you worship Shiva, you could worship Shiva for a spouse. You could worship Ganesh to clear out obstacles in your life or obstacles on your spiritual path. The different demigods, Saraswati for knowledge, all of these different personalities you can approach for what? To fulfill your desire. So it may be a higher perspective, and even the mode of worship is a higher mode in Sattva-gun, but the rajas present in the heart and the tamas present in the heart, the passion and the ignorance make cause desires to be fulfilled. So one's faith may be in a demigod, but what does Krishna say in the 7th chapter? That if your faith remains steady, then there'll be purification of the heart, and then ultimately you'll know who is the Supreme. And then you'll rise to the platform where the process that you're following will become transformed into Shuddha Sattva, into pure goodness. It won't be influenced by your desire. It'll be influenced by following or trying to fulfill the desire of the Supreme. Text 5 and 6. Those who undergo severe austerities and penances not recommended in the scriptures, performing them out of pride and egoism, who are impelled by lust and attachment, who are foolish, and who torture the material elements of the body, as well as the supersoul dwelling within, are to be known as demons. And you have a lot of stories in the Ramayana, in the Bhagavad Purana, that demons who tortured themselves performed very severe austerities in order to get what they wanted. So one is Vrikasura, who was cutting off his flesh and offering it to Shiva. And when Shiva did not appear before him, he was going to cut his head off. And then finally, before he did that, Shiva appears to him. He says, okay, enough already. What is it that you want? And this Brikasura had lusty desires within his heart. He performed austerities and penances severe, as did Ravana, as we see in the Ramayana, and who was the other one? Kamsa and Hiranyakashipu. They all performed very severe austerities in order to get what they wanted. But the motive, they approached Brahma, or they approached Shiva, they approached the various demigods because they had motive. So that's what Krishna is saying there. When you have more motive, you can be very austere. and you perform very severe austerities. In fact, in the case of Hiranyakashipu, when Brahma appeared before him, he said, the kinds of austerities that you have performed have not been seen in this universe. Brahma was kind of a side-handedly complimenting the severity of the austerities. But what happens when there's raja in the heart, passion in the heart, and you're doing it for some intention, some desire, then that process really puts you, if you remember the 16th chapter and what constitutes one of a demoniac nature, you see pride, arrogance, conceit. Those are the various qualities that greed, lust, those are the various qualities that are attributed to those of demoniac tendency. So that's in the mode of passion. And pride. Yeah. Text 7. Even the food. Now, this is great because this is very consistent with Ayurveda. So this is very good. 7. Even the food each person prefers is of three kinds according to the three modes of material nature. That's why Ayurveda is so strict about what you eat. What you eat for your constitution or for the imbalance that is there. Food, proper foods have a very potent purificatory and balancing effect. So the same is true of sacrifices under the three gunas, austerities under the three gunas, even charity under the three gunas. Now, here of the distinctions between them. So, 8, foods dear to those in the mode of goodness increase the duration of life, purify one's existence, and give strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. Such foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. Now, those are sattvic foods. Foods like fruits, vegetables, grains, dairy. All of these are, you see, juicy, fatty, dairy. What else does it say? Foods dear to those that are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. Wholesome foods. That is sattvic. And you are what you eat. If you can design your lifestyle to be sattvic, then you also have your mind, your body becomes influenced. 9, foods that are too bitter, too sour, salty, hot, pungent, dry, and burning are dear to those in the mode of passion. Such foods cause distress, misery, and disease. And 10, we'll stop at 10. Food prepared more than 3 hours before being eaten. Food that is tasteless, decomposed, and putrid. That's all processed food. And food consisting of remnants and untouchable things is dear to those in the mode of darkness. So Krishna is giving us indication how even with what you eat, when you eat, very, very important concept, in terms of cultivating the yamas and niyamas, the internally and externally, the proper mode of behavior. So we'll stop here. It's 8 o'clock, I believe. Yep, on the button. I will take a few moments. Anyone has any questions or comments, then you please feel free to do so. Gokula, would you like to say anything about Ayurveda and diet? Something brief? You have anything you'd like to add? Gokula Priya is a medical doctor, but she is also a trained Ayurvedic doctor. She does healing on both levels with a emphasis on Ayurveda.
Sorry, Lakshmi Prabha, I missed what you were saying. I'm putting Nishinga to sleep.
It's okay. I was just talking about lifestyle and eating, and I just thought, I went over the foods in the various modes, and I just wanted to know if you wanted to add anything about. I was emphasizing Ayurveda's emphasis on eating. Do you have anything you would like to add to that? Anything brief?
Well, in brief, it's for different constitution. There are 3 types of constitution: Vata more airy, and then Pitta more fiery, and Kapha more earthy and watery. So depending on the constitution, there are different types of food for different types of constitution, and there are also different types of according to the also seasonal eating. So according to Ayurveda, there are 6 seasons. So seasonally, depending on the season, now is the cold season. Even we live in Florida, it's a little cold, so more warm food, more with spices. Spices means not spicy like cayenne pepper, but spices means like cumin, coriander, fennel, something, or ginger and turmeric. Something helps to digest the food. So, and in brief, it's hard to say anything about the diet. It's just according to season and according to constitution and the time. I always recommend to have biggest meal during lunchtime, because at that time is digestion is the strongest, and a light dinner and breakfast, depending on the constitution, could be a light or a little heavy.
And from my understanding, what you just said, that you have a constitution, and if you eat, accordingly, according to your constitution, that will help the body. But one thing I wanted to ask you for your comment: what if you have an imbalance? Is there also a way to eat? In other words, let's say I'm Pitta, right? And there's a certain Pitta diet or Pitta oriented diet, but I may have a Vata imbalance. So that would be a third way to eat, right? Right.
Yes, definitely. According to imbalances, balancing the fire, which is Pitta, balancing the air, which is Vata, and balancing the earth and water.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gokula.
Sure.
Does anyone else have any comments or questions that they would like to ask, or any realizations or any takeaway points from what was discussed today? Please feel free to jump in right now.
Hare Krishna Babaji, Dhamma Pranam, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for such a wonderful class. I just wanted
You're welcome, bud.
I just wanted to say one thing about the power of Mahamantra. Like I'm a single person and I do everything in the house myself. But before I started chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, everything seemed difficult, and it is to irritate me, it is to make me angry, and this. But like, let's say, for example, if I'm doing dishes and I see like bunch of dishes in the sink, first I start saying Hare Krishna Mahamantra and I start doing dishes. That makes me feel like that I'm doing that for Krishna, and that should not be a burden. So like Hare Krishna Mahamantra helps me like at work also, like, I'm a pharmacist, I have to stand on my feet all day and I meet all different kind of patients, and then patients, obviously they are not in good health, so they're like in irritated mood, or they are like angry or this and that. But like you just say Hare Krishna Mahamantra, if not loudly, like silently, that gives you like this strength to cope with those kind of situation, and make patients happy, like make them understand, like like about their medication, like, okay, if you take this medication properly and this and that, then you will feel better. And that way, patiently, if you explain them, but all that comes like from this Mahamantra, like so for cleaning, for anything I do, even driving, like sometimes like somebody cuts you off, instead of going after them, you just say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And like let that person meet somebody else. It's not gonna be me.
Yes. Yeah, because yoga means to control the mind and the senses. And the alambana for a bhakti yogi, the object of meditation, which brings senses and mind under control, is Mahamantra, or any, the mantra that helps one to meditate on the object of their meditation. And it's funny you said that about cleaning, but I do the same thing, because it's not fun cleaning. My wife works hard. She works 10.5 hours a day, so I can't expect her to do that. And but when I'm cleaning, I try to develop a similar meditation, that this is in service. It's in service to my family. It's in service to Radha Krishna, because cleanliness is next to godliness. So when you do something that creates cleanliness, then that's creating a sattvic environment. And it's the sattvic environment that helps the mind to be controlled. And like you said, Bharat, the passions, the anger that can develop, and all the different things that can come, the sadness that can develop, the anxiety, I'm so tired, I'm standing on my feet all day. All these things come under control. And that's because the emphasis in Kali Yuga given to us by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to focus our consciousness on the Mahamantra. There are many, many mantras. We'll go over that some other time. And we should understand, most people, I think in the yoga community, don't understand that certain mantras come from certain parts of the Vedas to achieve certain things. Some of the mantras are not, a lot of mantras are not there for attainment of the absolute goal, union with the Supreme. Some of the mantras are just give me peace, give me happiness, give me this, give me that. Like Loka Samasta, Loka Samasta, Surino.
Tukino Bhavantu.
Tukino
Yes.
Bhavantu.
Right. There you go. And that's, peace in the universe, peace in the world, peace to all beings, that type of thing, which is fine. It's a great sentiment, but it's a little distinct from chanting something like the Mahamantra, the Hare Krishna mantra, which is selflessly asking, my dear Radha Krishna, can I serve you to please you? So that there's a distinction in the mantras. And it's nice to know what you're chanting and, what is it actually saying and what is it doing. So some people tell me, after a kirtan, I don't know what that means. I just like the way it sounds. And that's okay. But I prefer to be aware of what I'm saying and why I'm saying it and the effect that it has. Anyone else? Any other realization or comment or question?
Yeah, I was thinking that yoga is promoted almost as it is not religion. It's not religion. And I was thinking if it that was the way they found that they could enter the Western society?
Well, I think Westerners, to a great degree, like Krishna Namacharya was, he was a Sri Vaishnava. He was a worshiper of Lord Vishnu. I think Westerners moved it more and further away because what happened? Westerners got into business. They opened the yoga studio and they crunched numbers. And, people just wanted to come to get into physical shape. And then they found, if I, do this little thing that was kind of quirky and interesting, like uh, different rituals from different parts of the world that were kind of fun. Right now, ecstatic dance is very popular. Cacao rituals are very popular. There's a lot of things out there because they're fun, and people don't want to go to church because their experience growing up with church wasn't fun. Church was a drag. So now people who have started a business in making money, they try to not alienate anybody. And the best way to not alienate anybody is just to say or do something that may seem a little controversial, from their perspective. I knew one yoga teacher in New Jersey she used to get very angry when someone used to say, let's chant to Vishnu or Ganesh, and she'd say, no, yoga's not a religion. She was like angry. Yoga's not a religion, and these people, you don't even know who. And to one degree, she's right. You don't even know who Ganesh is, or who they really are. Um, so in one sense, she's right. You should know, but in another sense, that is yoga. It is to connect us to the Supreme, and it can be done in a way that can be not sectarian in that sense.
But
Yes,
my
Emma.
point is, nowadays I see that also, but when I don't know, Vivekananda or Ramakrishna brought yoga to the West, because I have been listening to yoga is not a religion since ever, and I mean 50 years or so.
Yeah, yeah.
So they saw this that early.
Yes. Some of them did see that
Okay.
those that were trying to understand the Western mindset, because understand the Indian mindset and the Western mindset, especially at that time, it's come closer now because India has been so influenced by the West. So we're
Exactly,
coming
because
closer.
India lost it. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
But
Yeah.
it's come closer. But even
Not that
still
much.
not. There's still things very deep rooted
Yeah.
in Indian mindset that's different than the
Fortunately,
Western
I
mindset.
say.
Fortunately, yeah. I mean, still,
Yeah.
in terms of family values,
Uh,
respect for elders,
yeah.
that kind of thing is still very, very strong
And
in,
religion, because
yeah,
there are very few people that are not religious in India.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of the
Everybody,
opposite here.
right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Because the real
Well,
thing
see,
is,
the other thing I'm sorry to interrupt, but the other thing I
no.
wanted to say is that the early Indian gurus that came here were Advaitins. And Advaitin philosophy is used to eradicate, remove the presence of a personal God. So that if you look at people who are lean Advaitin, but really don't understand it's just an opportunity to get rid of God. Advaitin philosophy, you do the meditation. Buddhism, there's no God in Buddhism, but you do the meditation. You attain the peaceful state, etc. All things that people would want without the commitment to God. So because those early gurus who came primarily in the 60s, many of them, with the exception of Prabhupada, my guru. Okay, Karen, we'll see you. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Many of them were Advaitin influenced.
Yeah, good point. Exactly, good point. Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
so let's.
And they were
thank
not
you
Shaiva, right?
Well, the Shaivism has its different emphasis. Some Shaivism has the emphasis on Brahman, and some has the more devotional emphasis. So, Kashmiri Shaivites are more devotional.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Lakshmi, always.
Okay. Good
Glad to
evening,
be back.
everyone. Thank you for your association. Wonderful to have you back, Eleanor. Good night. Hare Krishna.